Hello, I'm Paul Childerhose, a member of the Board of Directors with the Canadian Regulatory Technology Association, or also known as the CRTA. Today, I am very pleased to be joined by Alex Ford, President of North America and Chief Revenue Officer at Encompass Corporation. Encompass is a RegTech company that was launched in Australia in 2012 with a mission to support global banks and financial institutions to fight financial crime and streamline their KYC processes to comply with AML regulations globally. About Alex, she's a pioneer in transforming Know Your Client or KYC capabilities with her groundbreaking work on corporate digital identity. She's also a passionate advocate for women in tech, co-founding Women in RegTech New York, and earning accolades as one of American Banker's top 20 women in fintech in 2024. I appreciate you making the time to meet with me and our listeners today, Alex. Maybe to set the foundation for our conversation on the topic of CDI or corporate digital identity, could you just take a moment to explain what this is, why it matters for our audience? Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks for the opportunity to be on your podcast today. Love seeing the work of the RegTech Association there in Canada, sort of raising the tide for all boats when it comes to RegTech. So really pleased to be part of that conversation as well. So with the corporate digital identity or CDI, I think what's helpful to look at when you think about identity is the way it's offered digital transformation across a range of arenas. And certainly when you look at retail banking, we see one example where digitization of identity for consumers has really changed the pace and the way that financial services can be offered. And when it comes to corporate institutions, as opposed to consumers, you can think of digital identity and the opportunities on offer in some of the same ways. If we look at the way the corporate identity is established and verified today in financial services, that typically takes weeks or months because it's far more complex and involves a lot more documentation and a lot more due diligence. So when we're talking about corporate digital identity, what we're talking about is a more instantaneous creation of the digital identity, but for a corporate entity as opposed to a consumer or two-legged individual. And I think, it's a helpful metaphor to think about the opportunity and the benefits that have been realized in the retail arena, but certainly it's far more complex, as you note, when it comes to corporate and institutional banking, because of a number of those things, which mean the requirement in each circumstance might be different. You're looking at things like jurisdiction, risk assessment, type of product being traded, local laws, the booking location versus where the headquarters are versus where the branch you're dealing with might be. So there's a lot of different factors that go into determining the requirements for the identity and verifying that in any particular situation. Mm-hmm. And so the response and the way we construct the identity for a corporate needs to reflect that and needs to be flexible and needs to cater to each financial services institution's obligations at that point in time. So that's where things start to differ quite a lot, because it's not going to be a fixed identity that satisfies all circumstances. But what we're talking about here is, how do you equip the bank or the regulated body with the technology, the data, the process to be able to construct and verify the identity that the engagement or transaction calls for and meet that? And how do we take that from being a 90-day process full of friction to something that's more, hours or days or minutes to hours? And that again, is a journey. It's a matter of putting in place different connections to the data and documents, what's available in the public domain, as well as things that will only ever be shared privately between the customer and the bank, things like trust documents or other forms of ID for the controllers and managers and people involved, and getting that in a format that you can digitize and then use as part of your systems in the bank. Looking at the customer experience impact and the competitive nature of, getting deposits in or trading a new, offering a new product or service, it is a competitive scenario. And so in the past, I guess it's an ongoing debate. Sometimes people see KYC as not competitive because it's something that everybody's subject to. Certainly, there are things that as an industry, there's room for everybody to take a big step forward. And I would argue still then margin to differentiate competitively with the customer experience you provide. But I think that's why financial institutions are looking at corporate digital identity as more than an ops problem or more than a compliance problem or more than a data problem. Like, you really have to think about the opportunity for the bank at large if you think about the number of touch points corporate digital identity hits on in terms of the operating model of the bank. And is it connected with a your client relationship management system? Is it connected with your risk systems? Is it feeding into data lakes? Is it feeding into customer, client lifecycle management systems? So this identity has traditionally been a source of a bottleneck, or it has traditionally limited what you could do and what services you could offer and what you would reasonably expect to be able to turn around, because you just accepted, well, first I'm going to have to, look up something on this company register, and then I'm going to have to go and check that at another source, and then I'm going to have to ask the customer for the difference, and that's probably going to be 6 weeks of back and forth by email. And now we're saying, well, what if all of that was digitized already, and you can call on it according to the requirements of the particular scenario and build the identity and do that in a time frame that means you can offer a different service or have a different customer experience available. So I think that's why we're seeing a lot of excitement, because it's not just an incremental process improvement. It's about how do we think differently about how we organize ourselves, and there's consequences for that in terms of workforce planning and resourcing, the level of checking you need to do. Can you now see a maker and put them in a checker role because the making is being automated, for example? So how does that impact your capacity? So it's a very holistic picture if you step back and look at all the places that the corporate digital identity can touch.
How about on the innovation side, like coming up in 2025, not that many months ahead of us, as you and your role with Encompass look ahead on the horizon, are there one or two things that you'd like to share and, look ahead, help us to crystallize in our minds where the industry may be going in terms of the advancements in the technology available for next year?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Yeah, I think the idea of having a digital means to share the information that would always typically be shared privately, a trust document or a director ID, things like this, which have henceforth been shared via email. I think looking at secure means, portals that are controlled by the client and uploading those, them owning, controlling, permissioning the way that information gets shared. I think that's a trend we'll see, and the technology's there to deliver upon. And in different parts of the world, seeing initiatives and demand where there are, standards emerging, so that those sorts of platforms can bring efficiency to the way the bank works. And I think another really exciting area is intelligent document processing. So where we're seeing technologies that can take some of those forms or faxes
Mhm.
that have been in years gone by or come in as paper forms or official filings or documents that get submitted to registers and other things, and take those and extract the information from them, but not just for the sake of extracting it, but so that it can then be used in real time to automate due diligence and make each search and inquiry go further, because you've been able to harness the information that's been taken from those official documents. So that's another area of technology that offers a lot of promise. Is very exciting at the moment.
I can't let you go without asking one question as it relates to the market I'm in here in Canada and the
Yeah.
Canadian Regulatory Tech Association. I know you're based in the US now, and
Yes,
the
in New York.
company
Yep.
in New York, company was founded in Australia, operating now in many different jurisdictions. But without disclosing specifics, can you share, is Canada a market in which Encompass has been making some traction? Are you seeing success in terms of
Yeah.
awareness and adoption of your solutions here?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some of our biggest clients are in Canada, and we definitely see demand in that market, particularly banks that are operating globally from Canada and
Mhm.
offering those corporate and wholesale or capital markets type offerings. They're subject to the same regulations and complexities in terms of offering products to clients operating globally. And so, really, the need for automation and being able to verify the identity of corporate customers using publicly available and privately shared information is very applicable. But there's also things that are unique or nuanced to the Canadian landscape in terms of the amount of information that's available at some of those public sources,
Mhm.
and how that's in fact changing as well. In Canada, like in other jurisdictions across the world, heightened focus on beneficial owners and how we get that transparency that helps bring everyone confidence and comfort around who they're dealing with. So yeah, absolutely, very much a key market for Encompass for sure. And we've been there over the last 2 years, and will continue to be. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you, Alex. That concludes our time that we'd allowed. But again, it was a pleasure for you and I to catch up here, to also, bring your message to our listeners and members and guests of the Canadian RegTech Association. So thank you so much for today, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Paul. Look forward to collaborating further. Nice to chat with you today.
Likewise. Thank you, Alex.